What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to episode 26 of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Lillianwall. I've got producer Noah here with me. Noah, say what's up to the people.
The Seattle Sounders are awful.
The Seattle Sounders have lost 1-0 to the LA Galaxy. They are 0-2-3, last place in the Western Conference. And we're going to spend episode 26 diving into our reaction to all that. We're going to lead with the Seattle Sounders. You know, I was doing a bit where I was saying that I wasn't going to lead with the Seattle Sounders unless they scored multiple goals. We didn't have to adhere to that last week because they actually did score multiple goals. They didn't this week, but I'm not going to adhere to the bit because as it turns out, the Seattle Sounders struggling this much has been good for us. Noah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe our last show broke our all-time downloads record.
Yeah.
Which, while unfortunate as it is, the form that the Seattle Sounders have been in, that's good for us.
Yeah.
So,
and if there's one thing about us, we care more about ourselves than this club.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, I'll take it. And on a serious note, I really do appreciate how many people tuned into the last episode, how many people have submitted questions the last couple weeks. It's really nice for us to hear that many people are listening to the show and interacting with us, and it's great. Like, I've tried to express this clearly, but that motivates us to keep putting out more content and trying to tailor it to what you guys like. So thank you again to everyone who tunes in every week. And thanks again to everyone who submitted questions this week. We're going to try and hit as many as we can. There is about 60 replies to my tweet, so we're not going to be able to do all 60, but we're going to do our best. But we're going to break down this Sounders 1-0 loss at LA Galaxy. Give all our takeaways. Noah, I actually, some people might not like it, but I actually am we're going to lay down the obvious negatives from this. I'm going to talk about a couple of the reasons why I actually came out of this game not feeling great, but feeling a little better after this game than I have after previous games. And, I'm not one for delusional optimism, and I hope everyone who listens to this show can appreciate that when things are going poorly, I'm not going to try and frame it like things are going positively. And I would not do that in a situation right now where the Seattle Sounders are 0-2-3. But if I do see something that I think gives reason for hope, I'm going to point that out too, even in the dark times. So I'm going to lay that take today as well. But needless to say, the full body of work is not great so far. I mean, 0-2-3, last place in the Western Conference, 2 points from their first 5 games. Still 1 goal from open play this season through 5 games, which means the Seattle Sounders are still tied with Houston Dynamo FC left back Brad Smith for goals from open play this season, which is not necessarily a stat that you want. But anyway, let's talk about this game now. Are you ready? Are you ready to get into this one?
If we have to, Ari. Actually, you know what? I'm actually kind of excited to talk about this one.
I know.
I got to be honest.
I am too. There was stuff to chew on from this game, at least. So, even though it was another loss, at least it gives us content, and that's positive for us here at Lobbing Scorchers. The first thing I wanted to talk about here, Noah, was just our reaction to the lineup. That's kind of how we've been starting off these last few shows because the lineup is the subject of so much debate every single week. And there was a few elements to this one. It was a new wrinkle.
Yeah.
The 4-4-2 was no more for
Thank
this
God.
game. It was back to the traditional 4-2-3-1, which I think it was time. I can appreciate the fact that the 4-4-2 was a logical experiment to undergo in this situation. When you have this many injuries and you're kind of this short of personnel, I don't mind trying new stuff, but the 4-4-2 did not work.
It was not good.
It was not cooking. So it was good to see, from my perspective at least, back to the 4-2-3-1 in this game. There were 3 things about this lineup that I wanted to react to here, Noah.
Yeah.
The first one was the decision to drop Christian Roldan back from right mid, back to his old spot from earlier his career in the defensive midfield to form a double pivot with Josh Atencio. I think that was probably the most significant change in this lineup. Christian really has not played that position in a couple years. He moved to right mid permanently a couple years ago, and he's been playing that position to great effect ever since, but really not to that great effect so far this season. The Roldan combination through these first 4 games before this game was not producing at the clip that it normally does. Neither from the eye test nor on the stat sheet. So for that reason, Noah, I actually was okay with the decision to move Christian back in this game. I didn't mind it. A lot of people, there's been kind of a polarizing debate on this. Some people have been arguing that it's time to try moving him back there to try and settle the midfield. A lot of people feel like, and this, I was actually arguing beforehand that moving him out of right mid, which has been shown to be his best position in the last couple of years, and really like the engine of this offense, right? We talked about that so much last year, how so much of this offense, especially with the injuries that they had last year, runs through the Broldans on that right side, and how much they lost when he was out with the concussion issues. But I just think that with how the offense has been producing so far this year, which is not at a not very prolific rate, let's just say, I don't mind trying moving him back to try and settle the midfield. And I think a double pivot of Christian and Atencio is a logically sound idea. And, you know he hadn't played it in a while, but he's played that position at an elite level in MLS for years. The beginning of his career, he had established himself as one of the best defensive midfielders in the league. And I think it speaks to kind of how versatile and adaptable a player he is. But for me, I didn't mind trying it. I was okay with it. I don't know. It's hard to say how well it actually worked because the field was soaking ass wet.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was kind of, it was frustrating because it was kind of hard to judge how this lineup actually performed because once again, the conditions were so poor. But in principle, I personally didn't mind the decision to move Christian back. What do you think?
No, I wasn't a huge fan of it just on face value because I think like you're already tinkering so much with this lineup. Like, let's get as many pieces settled as possible. That was my biggest issue with it. But I don't think he played poorly. I don't think that it was a bad idea to try and put him in that position, especially with like when Pedro de la Vega comes back. Maybe you want to move him there, and maybe you want to slot in Morris on one of the wings and Pedro de la Vega on one of the wings. So finding a position where he can be effective in a new wrinkle in a full strength squad, like how does that all work out? That's something to think about. But I thought he played fine. I thought Alex played fine. He plays the wing like in El Salvador.
Yeah, so
and
I guess that's a good segue because the other move was to in order to get Christian in that deeper lying midfield spot, Alex Roldan started on the right wing, which that one raised my eyebrows a little bit more. It's just, you're right. He is a wing back.
But he plays wing for El Salvador. Like when he plays for El Salvador, he plays right and left wing. So like,
yeah. And there's a lot of similarities in kind of what you're trying to do for as like an attacking right wing back compared to a right wing. So it's not like totally out of left field. He's never played it in MLS. And, while he may have played there a fair amount for El Salvador, it hasn't been his primary position in his professional career. Christian, he played deeper lying in the deeper lying midfield for years. So there's at least that experience, which is pretty extensive to fall back on, even if he hadn't played it in a while. Alex, he's never played right wing in MLS. Yeah. So, I tweeted before the game, I'm going to keep an open mind on it, but I don't really think it's going to work. And I don't think it did work especially well. And I don't think the Christian experiment worked especially well either. But like I said,
thought it was fine. I thought it wasn't like
considering the
good.
elements. Yeah. Considering the elements, like I said, I find it pretty hard to judge.
Yeah.
The last one was Cody Baker starting at right back, which that one I was like, oh, hell yeah. Cody Baker, every time I've watched him play dating back to last season, I found him to be very impressive. I think he's a really hardworking player. He's a hard-nosed defender, which I like. And his wide service is really good when he gets a chance to whip those crosses in. He has the one assist from open play that the Seattle Sounders have recorded this season. And that was a wicked pass in the San Jose game to set up the Danny Musovski header. So yeah, exactly. Like we've been actually advocating for multiple weeks now for Cody Baker to get at least more of a run, if not start. And so I was happy to see him start in this game. And I think overall, when I saw the lineup, we've talked about it a lot, but I I've just been advocating for different wrinkles, different curveballs, kind of irrespective of what they are. And, you know, like there are other things that Schmetz could have done here. A lot of people felt like Danny Leyva earned another start after he looked really good, I think, in the San Jose game.
Yeah.
His set piece delivery was really good. He is a very talented passer and ball progressor, even if he's not the fastest dude in the world. But I'm sympathetic to the idea that Danny Leyva could have started in the defensive midfield and Christian could have kept his normal spot at right mid, and maybe you put Cody Baker at left back for Nuhu, and then you put Alex Roldan back at right back. Like that's all well and good, and I think like I wouldn't argue with it if that was the 11 that Schmetz rolled out. I don't know how much I believe that Danny Leyva starting is this big needle mover that would have necessarily changed how this game went or changed the result. It's personal preference. If you think that would have been a better way to run it out, I'm not necessarily going to disagree with that. I just don't. I'm skeptical, I guess, that there's much higher odds of the Sounders beating or drawing the Galaxy in this game with that lineup compared to this lineup. If the coaches ran the lineup that they ran out there in training and thought that had the best chance to win, I'm not necessarily going to disagree with that. But I do understand. I am sympathetic, like I said, to the idea that Danny Leyva could have started in this game. I think there's a fair case to be made that he earned it based on his play in the San Jose game. He's subbed on in this game, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm fully convinced that you run Danny Leyva and Atencio in the double pivot and Christian at right mid. All of a sudden, it's like a 3-1 win here. Like, yeah. I don't know about that. Maybe, but
I'll be a Danny Leyva advocate here. I don't think that it changes the result. Maybe. But actually, I do think it might change the result because on the Peck goal, Nuhu gets beat like 3 times in the clip that they posted. Like he gets lost in no man's land. So if you have a defender like Cody Baker out there who doesn't necessarily play the same way that Nuhu does and in an advanced role and then not getting back, I think maybe that goal doesn't happen. Maybe another goal happens, you know what I mean? But I don't think that specific goal happens. And that's not to say that Danny Leyva is solving the problem. I think it's just that like you're putting better players in their natural positions when you're putting Danny Leyva on the field. So it's like Danny Leyva's not the key, but he's the key to like creating more normalcy in a lineup, in a formation that's way more normal. But I will say, shout out to Brian for actually like he's cooking something up. Like over the last few weeks, we were freaking out. We were like, Brian, please get rid of the 4-4-2. Like, I know you're trying to cook some here. It's not working. Just try new people, try new personnel. He's doing it.
At least, yeah,
he's
exactly.
doing it.
At least
like,
this was different. Yeah. At least this was different.
And this looked better than the 4-4-2 ever did.
Right. So that's actually a good segue into let's recap this game itself because there it was only 1-0, but there was some action to break down, and there were some comedic elements as well. First of all, it was pissing rain again in LA, so if you'll remember, a couple weeks ago, the Seattle Sounders famously played a really awesome game against the Philadelphia Union at Subaru Park, where it was a torrential downpour. They had guys come out on the field with mops while it was still pouring rain. Shockingly enough, that did not solve the soaking ass wet field, and they had to cancel the game. And it was funny because when like before the Sounders game starts, I'm working the other games on the MLS editorial desk. I'm kind of doing other stuff. I'm not necessarily tuned into the pregame show, so I don't really know what's going on. Before the Philadelphia game, I pulled up the feed right as it was about to start, and I was like, oh, wow, they're okay. This is a wrinkle that I wasn't expecting. Like, I didn't know that there was adverse weather. Let's see if they can actually play this game. Turned out that they couldn't. And then, this game, it was, again, like I was doing other stuff, and I pulled up the feed right before kickoff, and I see it's pouring rain again. I see them trying to clear off the field again. I was like, dude, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, am I being like... am I being trolled? Like, we're really doing...
They're just tossing up replays? Apple TV's this bad?
What is going on? Like, can I just get a game on a normal field in normal weather? Like, LA, it's not even supposed to be a place where it rains that much. Like,
no.
What is going on?
They're supposed to be, like, in a perpetual
God
drought.
Damn it. And it's just, in all seriousness, it's just obnoxious because, like, especially in this game with kind of new lineup where I wanted to see how it would play just out of my own curiosity. I can't get like a good read on that because the field is soaking ass wet and it doesn't like play normally. So it's just from the jump, man. It's like, what is going on this season? Like we're doing another rain game. At least they can actually play this one. The field was not as bad as it was in Philly, and they made it through the whole game. But it's just like, God damn it, dude! Like I just want to watch a normal game where the ball plays on a normal field, and I can at least see how this lineup functions for better or for worse. And I feel like once again, because of the soccer gods and the adverse elements, we didn't really get that opportunity. But needless to say, the Seattle Sounders managed to lose control of the game state in this game about as quickly as I've ever seen. I tweeted before the game that the LA Galaxy had signed the greatest MLS player I've ever seen, a man by the name of Joseph Paintsil, Joey Paints, who's quickly become one of my favorite players in the league to watch. But I wasn't necessarily looking forward to watching the Seattle Sounders contend with Joey Paints. And so, I mean, I wasn't even watching when it happened because that early in the game, it doesn't even occur to me that the game state is going to become that lopsided directly after kickoff. So Joey Paints, needless to say, started cooking instantaneously after the game kicked off. I don't even know how it happened, but he ends up on a breakaway literally directly after the game kicked off. Within 20 seconds, maybe, Joey Paints is cooking on a breakaway, just zooms by everyone, rips a shot on target, obliterates the post. And at that point, I was like, okay, here we go. I don't know how that happened that fast, but this could be a long night.
It was one of those just, oh yeah, chuckle, I'm in danger type
Joey
moments.
Paints already at it. You know, he's been arguably the hottest player in the league to start the season. He rips one off the post immediately after kickoff. It was an ominous sign. But, you know, I think the frustrating thing was because it went off the post, Seattle actually got away with that.
Yeah.
But the game state just remained entirely chaotic in favor of the LA Galaxy in the aftermath of that chance. And it was, I mean, I don't know what was going on. It was like Seattle just like decided we're not gonna really play defense to start the game here. We don't really see the need for that. We're just not gonna play it and see what happens. And that didn't pay off, unfortunately. Immediately after Joey Paints rang the woodwork, Gabriel Peck, the other DP winger that the Galaxy signed this offseason, who has not been as hot as Joey Paints, but he's a very highly rated prospect. And anyway, he gets a goal on just a pretty ridiculous sequence of defending. Okay. There's a lot of talk about Stefan Fry needing to save the shot from Gabriel Peck, which is very true. Yeah, Stefan Fry.
It was a howler.
It was a howler. Bad. And Steph Fry, you know, for as great a goalkeeper as he is and as he's been, you know, MLS Cup MVP, he's one of the greatest goalkeepers in MLS history, both in terms of his statistical output and the trophy case that he's been the starting goalkeeper for this entire fantastic run of trophies that Seattle had in recent years. So we all know that Stefan Fry is a goated MLS goalkeeper, but he's been good for like a howler every so often in his career. There was the one famously in 2014 against the Whitecaps. Remember that one where he ran that was my first year on the beat. Actually, right before I started, but I always remember the highlight. He runs like all the way to the corner flag and tries to clear it. And I think it was the Whitecaps who regained possession and he was just nowhere near the goal and they got an easy goal. And he talked a lot about in subsequent years about how that was like a confidence rattling moment and how Ziggy sticking with him through that really built him up and kind of created a platform for him to overcome adversity and evolve into the goalkeeper that he ultimately became. But I mean, it was a bad highlight.
Yeah.
There was also the one, I was at this game, LAFC's first ever home game, where LAFC it was 0-0 right at the end, and Ari and Colin had a free kick that was right at Steph Fry, and it hit him in the hands and squeaked by him. Seattle lost that game 1-0. That was a pretty bad howler. There's been at least one or two others, and then I think this one was kind of in that category where Gabriel Peck puts the shot on target, but it's pretty much right at Steph Fry. an MLS goalkeeper. That's an easy save for an MLS goalkeeper, to be honest. But he should never have been in that situation.
No.
Like the sequence of events that led up to that shot getting put on target shouldn't have happened. Everyone's blaming Nuhu, and a lot of it was on Nuhu. I thought Jackson Reagan also didn't cover himself in glory in that sequence. It was a full scale breakdown. I think
it was
so that
bad.
led to that shot getting taken to begin with. And I blame the defense more than I blame the goalkeeper on that play. That shot just should not have been taken both on the sequence, but also this kind of leads me into my next point, which is that if you look at the defensive lapses that have happened in the last couple games, it's not even that the goals are being conceded as much as it is how they're being conceded and the timing with which they're being conceded. In the San Jose game, we talked about it on the last show, but you have two separate instances of defensive malpractice where you're conceding a goal right after you've conceded the first goal, and then you're conceding another goal literally on the next ensuing kickoff after you score an equalizer, which are both examples of situations where game management is crucial and you've let the game get out of control in those situations and you end up conceding. To concede two chances like that, one to Joey Paints, one to Gabriel Peck right after kickoff, it's just poor game management. Like to start the game like that, you're trying to be on the front foot, yes, but you're also trying to make sure, especially as the road team, I think that's key here, especially as the road team in adverse weather, like you need to be managing the tempo and the overall game state much better than they were so as to concede two really clear-cut chances like that. And I think that's another reason why I'm not as wrapped in the howler itself, because it's like, okay, if Steph Fry saves that, you should have still conceded to Joey Paints right before that. Like, they deserved to concede based on how they were defending at that juncture in the game. Like, it was just luck that the Joey Paints shot went off the post. Like, he's been finishing those this season so far. So
I think I just disagree. Straight up.
All right, like
we're getting a scorcher in here.
Let's cook.
I think that, yes, maybe that Joey Paintsel goal goes in on a literally every other day of the week, but it didn't. And then you got to look at, okay, you're right, game management 100% is where it's at. So like, what's next? Where does the defensive breakdowns keep happening? Well, tell you what, it keeps happening on the left side of the field. Like, that's where that assist comes from. Joey Paintsel probably could have gone and scored that goal by himself. He didn't even need to pass to Gabriel Peck. He walked through the defense. Jackson Reagan let him walk through him. Nuhu wasn't even in the conversation.
He was watching. He was
bro.
watching the sequence.
He was posted with some popcorn and a hot dog. Like, I think that what essentially could have been a 0-0 game or a 1-1 game, whatever it may be, right? Like, you're getting in situations constantly where, and this happened last year too, when they were still able to find success because, kind of like Mark said, this team was a stout defensive team that is focused on mitigating chances and basically just not giving up these silly ass goals. Fry should have been better. Nuhu should have been better. Reagan should have been better. But like, man, it's just like this type of goal keeps happening. And I think that, I don't know what the solution is, but yeah, it's all just this constant, like, just, I don't even know. People are just not in position. People are not playing well. Nuhu's not playing well. Nuhu's starting. So maybe I'm just here to bang on Nuhu on the head. But like, I just think about that. It's like, okay, if that doesn't go in and then the Sounders maybe get lucky, one falls for them in the same type of way, like, that's a win. Or you take a point home. It's like you have to be stout defensively if you know you can't finish the ball. Yeah.
Well, once again, that's kind of a good segue into the next part of the game because, I'm going to talk about what I saw in this game that I thought was actually, I'm not going to say actively good, but at least improved from the last run of games in the last couple weeks here. The Seattle Sounders actually, believe it or not, from about the 70th minute on in this game, they played decently functional MLS offense. And Noah, you were tweeting at me about the XG debate. So without getting litigating fully the XG debate, it's kind of relevant to my point here. Danny Musovski came on, and I think that he's been a standout performer in the last couple weeks. He scored the one goal from open play this season, but from the 70th minute on, trailing 1-0, Seattle actually generated a couple good chances. The offense looked competent. Okay, it looked competent, and that's a step. I mean this in a complimentary way, but also in a kind of backhanded complimentary way. The sequence of play from the 70th minute on looked a lot more like last year's team, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily a good thing. But if you think back to last year, okay, a lot of the national pundits who analyzed this team pointed out that the underlying performances, not necessarily just the XG, but the underlying performances in general and the eye test were actually pretty good for a lot of the season, and things like controlling the game, chance generation, where the numbers were actually looking pretty good, but they just weren't finishing. Rui Diaz was injured for most of the year. They were missing a lot with Christian's creativity, and Hebert was snake bit. So it wasn't resulting in as many goals as we're accustomed to seeing, and it wasn't resulting in as many wins as we're accustomed to seeing from Seattle. But the national pundits pretty consistently pointed out that the team was performing decently well in spite of the results they were taking. Now, I know that people don't want to hear that, and people didn't want to hear it last year. No, you never wanted to hear that.
No.
But I think the thing that you have to understand, okay, like our website has, MLS Soccer has two of the best like tactics writers in the business, Matt Doyle and Joe Lowry. They both last year, when they were covering Seattle, they consistently pointed those types of things out, okay? And these guys aren't Sounders fans who are looking to rationalize poor performances. The reason that they're looking into underlying data like that to try and assess how a team is performing compared to the results that they're actually taking is because that stuff is of predictive value. So they're trying to evaluate what teams that maybe aren't taking results might actually stand a chance at playing better. So they can predict that before it happens. And by the same token, like with Austin FC as an example, if a team is outperforming their underlying numbers,
St. Louis,
if they're going to regress, like such as St. Louis. Exactly. So when I look at that, I do put stock in that. And it matched up with the eye test that I saw from the team last year, where like they were playing pretty good ball to actively good ball at points last year, despite some of the results. And I always tried to point that out when I saw it, because I do think it is important to acknowledge when you're trying to assess like the future outlook of the team. It doesn't always like pan out like that, but it's something that I look at. And
but here is the future.
In this game, I at least thought, especially in the second half and after the Moose came on, I thought the ball was actually pretty good, especially given like that field was a pretty big disaster. Okay?
Yeah.
And like the ball is not rolling. It's pretty hard to play high level offense. I thought, LA's goal came on a howler from Steph Fry. And they had a couple other good chances, but they were not cooking like the LA Galaxy. For anyone who hasn't watched them this year, that's the best offense in the league right now. And they obviously, with the field in this condition, were not able to function at that level that they have been throughout the season in this game. They got their goal on a howler, which credit to them, but it's not like they were cooking all that much on offense either. So given the circumstances, I thought it was at least mildly encouraging to see the offense look like an MLS competent offense, which I thought it did from the 70th minute on. Seeing 2.1 XG, okay, that's better. That matches with my eye test of what I saw in the game, and that is at least better than has been in previous weeks. But now I'm going to give you the flip side of that coin. Okay, now here's the reason why I'm skeptical that necessarily means anything as far as predicting the future outlook of this team in attack, especially with the personnel situation and what it is right now. It was against the LA Galaxy, who they passionately love to concede goals. That is their the LA Galaxy love nothing more, especially on their home field, to concede equalizing and game-winning goals. For as good as they've been on offense this season, they have not moved on from that attribute much, if at all. And that's why going into this game, without knowing that the weather was going to be what it was, I actually felt like there was probably a better chance than most teams that Seattle could take a result in this game, because the LA Galaxy, the type of defense that the LA Galaxy play is similar to the type of defense the Seattle Sounders were playing right after kickoff in this game. They don't really do it a whole heck of a lot of the time.
It's not fun.
It's not something
it's
that
not cool.
It's not a part of the game that they're especially into.
It's just not LA, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like Erewhon Smoothies.
They're Hollywood FC. They're trying to get Joey Paints and Dejan Joveljic cooking. The defensive thing is not really their thing. So to rack up 2.1 XG against a team that doesn't really care about defending all that much, they had conceded 9 goals going into the season, and then you still get shut out. I would want to see a attacking performance like that, A, against a team that is better defensively, B, over a larger sample of games, and then C, also ideally with at least a couple of those chances actually finished before I really start talking about the predictive value and everything that I just talked about. But in a situation like this, I'll at least take progress if compared to what we've seen the last couple weeks. At least it was nice to see them play MLS competent offense, at least for a certain portion of time. And there was really 3 chances in this game that I thought were pretty high percentage opportunities that you would like to see them generating more often. There was actually one early in the game, right after Gabriel Peck scored the on the Steph Fry howler, where Jordan put in a low cross to the left for Raul. Raul got the shot off inside the box. Remember this one? Mm-hmm. And he just missed it to the near post. That's at least the type of look that you want Raul to be having, ideally multiple times throughout a game, right? He just missed it, but he hasn't been getting those looks nearly enough in front of goal. So I thought that was a good chance. The Moose header, okay, that's not a really high percentage chance. It's kind of a speculative cross from Christian on the right side that Moose is kind of sneaky athletic. He got really high up to win that header. He put it on target, and that was you got to credit John McCarthy on that. That's a really, really high class save that he made. Maybe if Moose gets that chance 10 times, he makes it a couple of times and John McCarthy doesn't get to it. So I thought that was a pretty good look. And then, the toughest one, right at the end, I think it was right before second half stoppage time, or maybe in second half stoppage time, where Dylan Tevez, who subbed on, lays one across the box to Jordan Morris, who basically has an empty netter. And he doesn't put it on target. He puts it wide.
He went 1v3 into the wet ass box and just missed a sitter. Let's be honest.
And so if he makes that, he misses a sitter. If he makes that, man, they take a point from this game in all likelihood. And all right, I'm not going to roast Jordan overly hard for missing the sitter. I swear, this could be delusional rationalizing, Noah. I get it. But, if that's not a soaking ass wet field, I bet he makes that shot, first of all. He should make it anyway. It's close enough, and they've been playing on that field for long enough where you would hope that he would be able to read how the ball is going to play a little better. I don't know. But, Noah, when Jordan missed that chance, like, did you look into his eyes?
Dude,
Like,
he looked dead. He looked like he was dead.
He was staring into. There was pain in his eyes as he gazed into the deepest realms of outer space, wondering and questioning what led up to that exact moment in his life. And I just couldn't help but feel bad for him in that moment, because you could tell he wanted that goal so bad. He needed that goal. The team needed that goal. It was such a good chance. The XG on that one was through the roof. That was probably like 1.8 of the 2.1 XG that they racked for the game on that. That's a completely made up number, by the way. But I mean, there was genuine pain in the guy's eyes. And I saw that and I was thinking, man, like, you know, there's been a lot of talk about what the lineup should be, and a lot of people want Jordan benched right now because he hasn't really been producing so far this year. I actually tend to think that, you know, he's the type of player that's very dependent on outside factors to be effective, and I think a lot
as most nines are.
Exactly.
Or I mean, there are other players,
but Jordan,
like that,
regardless of where he's playing, like, his whole game is predicated on making runs in behind and getting service to, like,
a striker
to maximize his skill set.
Yeah.
And neither Jordan nor Raul have really been getting that outside help from those external factors so far this year. But, like, I did find myself thinking, like, first of all, like, I think Moose, at this point, I think it's worth starting him.
He should be starting over Raul.
He scored the one goal. Well, I mean, I was going to advocate for it over Jordan.
Oh, I disagree.
I mean, well, okay, hear out my logic.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a very good argument for Moose to be starting. He scored the one goal from open play so far this year, and he made a really nice play to put that header on target in this game for what could have been the equalizer. So he's looked like the most dangerous forward out of Raul, Jordan, or Moose. Like, I think Moose, Raul has more goals, but his goals are PK Merchant goals.
Yeah, he's PK Merchant.
Moose has scored from open play. The offense has looked like, I thought the offense, part of why the offense might have looked a little better last night was after Moose subbed on and he had a really good chance. So I think fundamentally there is a good argument for him to start. And then also, I think Jordan, more than taking a week off because of being ineffective or anything like that, like, I think maybe just a mental health break could stand to benefit him. Like it was tough seeing him in pain like that. I know he wants to get right back out on the field and, you know, redeem that missed sitter. And I'm not going to argue with it if they keep starting him. I do think there is a little bit of, we talked about recency bias on the last show with Jackson Reagan, and I think there's a little bit of recency bias going on with Jordan right now. This is a provenly effective and productive MLS attacker who has been a key starting player for many a trophy-winning side. He looked effective. I didn't think he was consistent last year, but his final output was pretty good, and I don't think it's necessarily a situation where the injuries that he's had have sapped him of his ability to be an effective and productive MLS player. I just think that he's not in form right now. And it seems like, I don't know, looking into his eyes last night, it seemed like it might be getting to his head a little bit. I mean, at the same time, he, you know, like I said, I tend to think that if the elements in the field are not in the same condition that they were last night, I think at the very least the odds that he makes that are much, much higher. So I don't know if I'm onto something with this idea, but I'm just trying to think of ways to get Moose in the lineup. And I think Raul is playing pretty well right now for the most part.
Really? Why though? Like, how?
Okay, he's been good.
He had four chances last night and had one where he shot it right at the goalkeeper.
He's been asked to do like a lot more stuff than he has normally done or should really be supposed to do.
Why should he? Why is he doing it?
I mean, because like with the lineup, what it is right now, that's what he's being asked to do, and he's playing hard. He's getting in good chances.
Jordan's
he's scoring
playing harder.
Panenka, PKs. I mean, look,
Jordan play. Listen. Hear this out. Here, try this on for try this pair of pants on, right? I don't hate Raul. I think that he still has something to give, but he is also getting up there in age. I think that his finishing is diminished quite significantly. I think that he's starting to make weird decisions as well, like just ripping shots.
He had a bad one last night, yeah.
And I think that in the formation that's clearly effective, which is the one that was played last night, you need a real 9, a solo 9. If we're playing Brian Schmetzer ball, a tall, moose-like figure is the guy who needs to be there. You keep Jordan Morris out on the wing because that dude is one of the only players on the field that I will watch for 90 minutes, and he actually gives a shit for 90 minutes and wants to be there and is working hard. Dude, that ball from Dylan Tevez, he took that, if you watch it, he picks his head up, sees no one else is there, and he's like, fuck it, I'm going to do it myself. Dribbles 3 defenders, cuts back while leaning back, and obviously misses the shot. But, like, I don't understand why you would pull that from the field when he can go 90 minutes. Raul, I mean, you're putting him at a false 9 because you're putting on Musovski, who's been clearly more effective. But Raul, he can't play a false 9. That's not his position. He's not good at that. You're setting him up to fail. So for me, it makes way more sense to bring him in a role that he was effective in last year, which is basically a super sub, and keep Jordan on the field as a winger.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, my argument for giving Jordan Morris a week off in this scenario is fully predicated on the mental health aspect of the situation and not necessarily on the form that he's been in, which, like, he hasn't been scoring, it's true, but you know, I tend to think based on the track record that if you can get him more chances like the sitter that he missed last night, I've seen enough of Jordan Morris throughout his MLS career to think that those will eventually start going in. And I think the same thing about Rui Diaz, but it just hasn't come to fruition yet through these first 5 games. So I don't know.
I'm off of Raul. I think maybe I want to. What do you see like in his potential for this season specifically? I think is what I'm interested in.
What do I see?
Yeah, like as the potential for now.
I mean, I don't know if I see it as potential of this outcome actually happening, but I think a big part of what is going to determine this team's ceiling when you can get guys like Albert Rusnak back to full fitness. He started last night, but it was his first start back. He's probably not like in peak form yet. And Pedro de la Vega. Raul is still your $10 million DP striker. And he is one of the best and most efficient goal scorers in MLS history. He's the leading goal scorer in Sounders club history. As long as he's on the roster, taking up the spot that he is on your cap, I think a lot of your ceiling is dependent on getting him performing at least something towards his previous capabilities in his MLS career. That might not be a good situation for the roster to be in, but that is the reality. And without banging your head against the wall, trying to get something to work that's not working, I think I've seen enough positive play from Raul this year, even though it hasn't resulted in open play goals yet. That I don't know. I still just keep coming back to the conclusion that he needs to be starting in your best 11. The one thing I will say is that there's valid argument in the whole debate between Morris, Raul, and Moose. Like, there's valid points for all 3. But I do think, man, like Moose has kind of earned a look here.
Yeah.
But if you factor in the fact that he's the one player to score from open play this year, and he got the closest to scoring last night, maybe other than the Jordan sitter, like when you're in a situation, Schmetz said last night that everything is on the table regarding lineup. So, we'll see what they do going forward. That's a good segue into we'll talk about the preview the next upcoming game on Saturday at Lumen Field. Seattle's coming home and they'll be taking on CF Montreal from Canada. And we're not going to spend too much time on this because I'll be honest, like, you know, I follow the whole league very closely. I watch a lot of the games every single week. CF Montreal is one of the teams that I follow the least, I would say.
It's because they're Canadian.
No disrespect. It's because
they speak French. Like, grow up.
They're one of the teams that I follow the least. But what I can tell you about CF Montreal, I can tell you a couple of things. They have a first year coach, Laurent Courtois, who he has them playing a little better than people expected. The pundits all said that CF Montreal was going to be in 17th place in the Eastern Conference this season. And I'm going to look up what place they're actually in really fast. But I think what I can tell you is that the ball that they're playing and a couple of the results they've taken they're in ninth right now. So they're 2-1 with 7 points, which people thought they were going to have 0-3-2 record with 2 points at this point, which is what the Seattle Sounders have. So considering how things have been going lately, I don't know if I would, I definitely wouldn't expect this to be an easy game just because CF Montreal is not touted by the pundits. They've actually, like I said, they've been playing better ball than people have been giving them credit for. So we'll see how they line it up. I mean, my source of intrigue at this point is basically predicated on seeing what Schmetz does with the lineup. And then hopefully getting an actual idea of how it plays and not having it take place in a torrential downpour again. That would be nice.
That would be enjoyable.
Anyway, Noah, let's get into a few questions here. I took more questions from you guys on Twitter last night, and we're going to hit a few of those before we jump into winners and losers from around MLS in Matchday 7. That sound good?
Yeah, it's right. Jumping back into that. How are they going to line it up, which I think is going to determine a lot for next week. Who has proved they can keep their starting spot? I argue almost no one. Yeimar and Tomas are the only players I haven't had one grievance with haven't had a grievance with this season.
Did you call him Andy Tomas?
Yeah. That's the bit.
Okay. I mean, okay, Schmetz said everything is on the table last night. I mean, I think there is an extent to which the injury situation has your hands tied in a few different capacities. Like, but, you know, I tend to agree. Like, I don't really think that any spot should be safe right now, but I think there's just like a few spots that are kind of safe by default because of injuries.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, I mean, I don't think I think it's too early to tell who's safe and not safe. I'll tell you who's not safe. Get Nuhu off the damn field. That's my take. If I had $1 for every time the Sounders stopped attacking once they got in the final third and instead turned around and passed it back, I'd be on a DP's salary. Nobody has confidence. Ari, is this true?
I mean, it's definitely been frustrating to watch an attack this season. I definitely don't disagree with that. I don't know. Maybe I'm delusional. You can tweet at me and tell me that if you think I am, but I thought it looked a little better on offense last night in the second half.
How does JP coming back fix any of this?
I think it helps a lot. He's one of the best two-way players in the league, and I think a big part of what you're seeing right now is just how much of a drop-off there is on this team when he's on the field compared to when he's not. And if I had to point to the single biggest factor that has hamstrung this team early in the season, no pun intended, it would be the fact that JP hasn't played a minute.
Sometime in the future, we'll look back at this current Sounders team and think, damn, that was a dark era. It'll pass. I want to believe that if we had everyone 100% healthy, this would be a winning team. I'm tired of what I'm seeing, but we will win a game soon.
The only thing I would say to that is it's still yet to be determined what this team is going to look like and the level that they can play at in a world where JP and Pedro de la Vega are healthy. It's definitely not guaranteed that's going to quote unquote fix everything, but I do think there is at least a chance that it's going to up the level quite a bit. So I don't begrudge anyone holding on to that as something to try and look forward to in this very tough season so far. But it's definitely not a guaranteed fix.
When's the GM vote again? Seriously, though, the lack of transparency from the front office since Chris and Garth left has been terrible. At this point, I don't know if we have a scouting department. We signed one player from outside MLS since switching GMs. I know money is tied, but get creative. Get a loan, buddy.
Craig Wibbs has been taking a lot of heat in these crowdsourced questions that I've been taking the last couple weeks. I mean, we talked about it on the last show with Mark. The A-Bear signing was a bust. There's been criticism on a lot of the other moves that he's made, but like I just feel like he really hasn't made that many moves to be able to assess yet. And I feel like the crazy amount of injuries they've had this year has made it's made it hard for me to like honestly come to a definitive conclusion on that. But I understand the disconnect with how ill-equipped that it seems like the team has been set up to handle the amount of injuries they've had. While at the same time, I think you got to acknowledge that this amount of injuries would put most teams under the gun. That's just the reality.
Ari, it's my birthday. What will it take for the Sounders to just, I don't know, win a game?
Happy birthday, by the way. Thanks for the question. What will it take for them to win a game? Well, they need to score multiple goals in an MLS game, which is something that has happened exactly once in 5 games this year. And should they do that, they need to not concede multiple goals in a game. Will they be able to do that this Saturday against CF Montreal? I mean, tune in to find out because it's going to be fascinating to track.
All right, last two here. This is the 3rd season with a nearly non-existent offense. How much of it is tactics and how much is players? I think the whole organization is an absolute mess. They also have a sell profile picture, so yeah, sell the Mariners.
I think this person...
they might be talking about the Mariners, actually. I'm not.
There was some... I've been getting some Hanauer sell tweets, which that's a spicy take. I mean, I think whoever asked that question... they're definitely speaking to how a lot of the fan base is feeling right now. I think that is, I think that's the most frustrating part of this whole situation is that there was so much talk about an inconsistent and anemic offense last year. They still managed to grind out second in the West, but it never felt like they were fully firing or were going to be a real contender to make noise in the playoffs. And then, the season starts and you instantly have an injury report with half the squad of all the most important players. And it's just a slog on offense again. You're conceding really unfortunate nil-timed goals. And, when you have a situation like that, it's good for Lob Scorchers, but bad for the Seattle Sounders.
So what do you think? Personnel or GM or tactics? Or everything?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of everything. But I mean, from my vantage point, it's mostly about personnel right now. Like you're throwing out like pretty crazy ragtag lineups with like Alex Roldan at right wing and a 4-4-2 that you haven't really run before and isn't working. It just feels like the pieces that they have at their disposal, there doesn't seem to be a really good way to fit them together. And Schmetz has been trying new things, but they haven't been working. So I see it as mostly personnel, which you could argue falls on the GM. You could make that.
But also, this is Major League Soccer. We play in a salary capped league, and there is only so much depth that you can realistically have of quality.
Thank you for pointing that out, because when I point that out, I get called a shill. But like that is just a fact. Like
no, it is. Like you can't ignore the fact that like we are playing like 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds who should be realistically not having to play in the circumstances that they have to, but we can't sign anyone else. There's no more cap room. Like, it just doesn't exist.
And you have MLS is such a hard league to tread water in when your DPs are either unavailable or unproductive. And you have a situation this season where João Paulo, one of your DPs, hasn't played. Albert Rusnak just got back from an injury that kept him out of every game. And Pedro de la Vega, who was the big shiny signing that was meant to give a boost from all the issues that we saw last year, instantly blew out his hamstring. So like that, when you're missing all three of your DPs, it's just the reality of the situation is that your productivity is going to suffer.
Change the roster rules. Garth out or something. I don't know. Whatever people on Twitter say. Last but definitely not least, if we brought back @Live Sounders, do you think we could score more goals?
That's a great question. And, one thing I will point out is that the Seattle Sounders are 0-2-3 with a -4 goal differential and are last in the West since the death of Live Sounders. So it's something to think about.
It's something to pontificate on, honestly.
Yeah, it is.
Think about it.
Okay, well, I guess we'll call that a wrap right there for the questions for the week. Thank you, as always, to everyone who submitted. Really appreciate all of you interacting and tuning into the show. Like I said at the top of the show, like our download numbers are so good, Noah. Like, it makes me really happy. So appreciate all of you for that. And
we love our hey listeners too.
We love our listeners here. All right, you down to jump around the league a little bit, do some winners and losers real quick, and then we can get up on out of here?
Let's do it.
Okay. Winners and losers from match day 7 in MLS. We're going to stick with this format because I've been having fun with it every week. I think it's a good way to kind of talk about the other results that have gone on, get a little respite from the difficulty that following the Seattle Sounders on a weekly basis has presented for us here.
And we're cementing our, potential as Sounders scouts. So,
Yeah, exactly. First winner for the week, Noah. Colorado Rapids, and specifically Georgi Mihailovic.
I've been saying, don't count them out.
We touted, a lot of the pundit class has kind of been touting a positive trajectory for the Colorado Rapids during the offseason because of a couple of the moves that they made. Georgi Mihailovic, chief among them. This guy was an MVP candidate a couple years ago for CF Montreal before he transferred to the Eredivisie. And I didn't actually follow how well he did over there. I'm not sure if it was a situation where he couldn't really get going or didn't do very well, and so ended up coming back to MLS. I thought I remembered seeing stuff of him starting to cook over there. But either way, the Rapids made him a club record signing over the offseason to really kind of build their club around him, which when he was at CF Montreal, he's a Chicago Fire homegrown. When he was at CF Montreal, he was producing like a legitimate upper tier, you can build an MLS attack credibly around this guy and he can carry you type of player for CF Montreal. That's so I thought it was like it felt like a high percentage signing for the Colorado Rapids when they did it. They took a lot of positive press for it. They also signed Zach Steffen to be their goalkeeper, who, for whatever you want to say about his U.S. national team career and getting left off the World Cup roster and what have you, he was an elite MLS goalkeeper of the year for Columbus Crew when he was in MLS. So that felt like a decently high percentage signing too. They lost 4-1 to the Portland Timbers in their first game. They took not as much positive press for the Chris Armas hire as their head coach. But they've kind of started to make those off-season predictions look better in the last couple weeks. They've taken a couple good results, and they bammed on LAFC really good in this game. LAFC was they were ahead 2-1 in the 83rd minute. Georgi Mihailovic scores a free kick golazo, which he almost did in Seattle, if you remember. It was ended up being Kevin Cabral on the rebound, but Georgi Mihailovic hit it real nice, and Andy Thomas had to make the save of his life to keep that one out. So really great set piece goal.
Andy Thomas better than Hugo Lloris? Is this what I'm hearing?
He might be. Yeah,
think about it.
I wasn't going to get into that take, but it is something to think about. But so Georgi Mihailovic bams on LAFC to tie it 2-2 in the 83rd minute, and then scores an 89th minute game winner. It was fun to see Dick's Sporting Goods Park in Commerce City erupt like that. The Colorado Rapids have had a tough last calendar year. I mean, they were, I think, they didn't win the Spoon last year, but they were last in the Western Conference, and it just felt like a stark downfall. So they're definitely a winner for this week, and I think they're even more of a winner for this week because Georgi Mihailovic, 2 goals, 1 assist.
He's back, baby.
He's back, and if he puts up a big year for them, that would be, I think, the single biggest factor to start talking about the Colorado Rapids as like, okay, this team's probably going to make the playoffs.
And just to point out too, like with the Sounders and missing so many players, without Georgi Mihailovic, the Rapids lose this game.
Yeah, 100%. And that's like,
you know what I mean?
That's what a DP who is producing at kind of carrier attack type level can do. Those players pull results by themselves. Like, how many times have we seen Hani Mukhtar do that for Nashville SC when that team probably by all rights shouldn't be scoring any goals, and then they get 2 or 3 goals just because he's that good and they cooked on that signing. The whole storyline with them is that they're way overly reliant on him. But like, yeah, exactly. Like when you hit on a signing, like it looks like the Rapids might have with Georgi Mihailovic, it can like change your outlook so much. And that's the effect that I think we were all hoping Pedro de la Vega would have on Seattle, but unfortunately he blew out his hamstring. That was a tangent right there, but I thought
had to hit it.
It was a good tangent. Next winner from Matchday 7, Philly Union, 2-0 on Minnesota United, who had been the hottest team in the league coming into the game. Yeah, speaking of being back, the Philly Union, they've won their last 2 games by a combined score of 5-1. They beat Portland on the road 3-1, which is not an easy thing to do. And then they come right back to Subaru Park and beat a Loons team that I mean, they've been in our winner section a couple times this season. They were the hottest team in the league. They've got this hotshot new young head coach who seems like a really good hire for them. They have a fun roster that's kind of got this intriguing mix of veteran talent like Timo Pukki and Emmanuel Reynoso, who I think is back in the fold after missing some time earlier this year with injury. And Philly kind of waxed him, and they've looked a lot more like the Philly that we've grown to know over the last couple years. It's just a well-run organization, man. Like, I mean, what can I say? Like,
and they have
every year they just are a well-oiled machine.
Always. And they've got a new up-and-comer who they just sold to Man City. I mean,
that's actually a good shout. I want to talk about this. So, yeah. Kevon Sullivan is the latest Philly homegrown to be getting hype and positive press. And he is, I mean, guys, I don't know if it's true. I'm not a scout, but the type of stuff,
we are.
We're becoming it. The type of stuff I'm reading about Kevon Sullivan is like Pulisic tier hype, if not even more so. He just reached an agreement, by the way, to Manchester City. Bought the one of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest clubs in the world in terms of spending, has bought this guy that he's going to go over when he's 18.
Yeah.
The way they're doing it is that he's going to stay with the Philly Union until his 18th birthday and then go to Man City, which is obviously huge news. But anyway, I was reading about him a little more because I was like, damn, like this is really like the most hype I've seen around a youth prospect
doing
in
tricks,
a long time.
Man.
Okay, his agent is doing tricks, but like if you read Tom Bogert wrote a kind of deep dive piece on him in The Athletic, and he interviewed a couple scouts and some like front office personnel, I think, at Manchester City and for the Union and U.S. Soccer. And the way they talk about this guy is, I mean, I've seen stuff, and this is not necessarily from an agent or a Philly Union representative that has a vested interest in hyping him up. I've literally seen stuff that's like, this is the best 14-year-old player in the world right now, and he has the highest ceiling of any U.S. player ever. And so I was like, okay, I read stuff like that, and I'm like, I gotta go check this out just to like see what's up. And like you watch his highlights, and I mean, you can only read so much into a highlight reel, but you look at it and you see a player who's like pretty electric on the ball for sure. And then I thought the thing that was most impressive about him was his vision and his unselfishness. Like he's a playmaker, and he has that kind of that kind of unique vision where to picking out those passes that other people wouldn't even think of. He's got that like gift in him, I think. And you always want to be careful about Freddie doing a prospect and like try to be mindful of that. But I will say that Philly Union fans and U.S. soccer fans, I don't begrudge anyone for being excited about this Man City move, and it'll be fun to track to see if he can live up to that hype.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he gets up to. I mean, it's
a lot of hype. It's a lot of hype to live up to, but like every so often, like Pulisic pretty much, I would argue, has lived up to a lot of the hype that he got as a youth prospect. Yeah. So if Kevon Sullivan is it takes a similar trajectory, the ceiling seems to be very, very high.
I mean, just the Union, Philadelphia in general, producing the greatest soccer talents of our modern American generation is crazy.
So his older brother Quinn is like playing for their first team and has been a really good prospect in his own right, who I'm pretty sure is getting a lot of overseas interest. He's got kind of nowhere near what Kevon has getting in terms of hype, but like you said, it just speaks to how elite their youth development is within MLS. Like if you're looking for the gold standard academy, FC Dallas is up there, obviously. But
shout out my former club.
I think especially with the next generation they got coming up with Sullivan and stuff, like Philly Union are 1A in that discussion. Last winner of Matchday 7, Real Salt Lake, Chicho Arango hat trick, 3-1 win over St. Louis City. Real Salt Lake was down 1-0 at home in the 70th minute of this game, and then Chicho Arango just went bananas and scored a 21-minute hat trick. He is nasty with it. Yeah, that was him. LAFC, frankly, man. I mean, we'll talk about them in a second.
Yeah,
but
in the mud, dude.
Chicho Arango. The LAFC hasn't been the same since Chicho Arango left, and he's been good since he went back to Real Salt Lake kind of towards the end of last year, but maybe not like LAFC tier Chicho, really. But this kind of showed that this is still a very dangerous and productive MLS number 9. And okay, so I took a little bit of heat last year because when they signed him and then also had Diego Luna on a upward trajectory, which I still believe in. I still believe in Diego Luna. I was touting Real Salt Lake, and that take didn't really pay off, and I got dunked on a little bit. Fair enough. But they're off to a pretty good start this year. They're third in the West, and Chicho blowing up like this in this game makes me think that I'm not calling it yet, but there could be something to that take after all. They've had a good start to the year. Diego Luna, he could take the leap. And Chicho is a nasty MLS number 9, like he showed last night. That's all I had for the winners section. Noah, did you have anything, or are you good?
No, I think that's it. I honestly, for the first time this season, turned off the TV.
I turned off petulant rage.
I was throwing a fit. I said I refuse to watch every other club be better than my club. So,
yeah, I mean. Honorable mentions, Sporting Kansas City, the club of professional wrestling enthusiasts.
Shout out my former employers.
They beat Toronto FC 3-1 at BMO Field. Toronto FC could be, I didn't put them, but they could be in the loser section just because Lorenzo Insigne is out long term again with another hamstring injury.
With a vape-related injury? Oh, that's Bernadeschi.
That's Bernadeschi.
Sorry.
Like, this is what I'm saying, though. Like, for all the talk about how above average in injury rate the Sounders have, like if you look at a team like Toronto, they have it just as bad, if not worse, dating back the last couple years. Their fans have like the exact same types of discussions.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other clubs that like you can put in that category where you look at the injury report every week and it's just ridiculous. But so I don't know how much of it is specific to any club or if that's just something that happens to MLS clubs sometimes or just soccer clubs in general. But either way, TFC has been dealing with this hamstring stuff with Insigne the entire time he's been in MLS. And it's unfortunate for them because they were off. They were probably the biggest surprise start in the league to start the year. And Insigne was cooking. He was scoring golazos for them every week, it seems like. And now they're without him for, it seems like, a Pedro de la Vega amount of time. But I will give credit to Sporting Kansas City, the club of professional wrestling enthusiasts, because they went in there on the road against a shorthanded team and took care of business. So credit to them for that.
I think it's time we start questioning the Canadian health services, Ari. I think it's time we put them on watch.
Maybe that universal healthcare is not. It's not really coming through. Austin FC. I still think they're one of the worst teams in the league, but they did get they got their first win in 6 months. The last time Austin FC won was October 4th, 2023 versus DC United. And they had like 4 losses and 3 draws since then. And Noah, I think I've talked about this, but Josh Wolf has been my favorite coach to watch the press conferences of during the stretch that they've been on. Like, I love a red hot embattled coach press conference, and he has been really delivering great content on that front. But I saw last night, I saw a tweet out there, and a bunch of fans showed out with a Wolf out banner. And they were like chanting. I saw a video, and they're taking a picture with their Wolf out banner, and the woman who's taking the picture is like, "Okay, Wolf out on 3." Everyone's like, "Wolf out!" Like, okay, it's like that in Austin. But then they come out and get a 2-1 rivalry victory over FC Dallas for their first win in 6 months. So that's enough for an honorable mention in the winners section for the week. All right, let's cut on to the losers. This section is more fun. I hate to do this again, but I have to for the bit until they win a game. Seattle Sounders, man. Shutout again versus the LA Galaxy, who, as we talked about, passionately love to concede goals. They would have loved, LA Galaxy would have loved nothing more than to concede the equalizer in that game. And Seattle Sounders, unfortunately, got shut out again, despite generating over 2 XG. 1 open play goal in 5 games, 0-3-2, last place in the West. Unfortunate and not what she want, really.
No.
LAFC. Okay, I'm sorry. I know I do the same teams in this every week, and that's kind of what the bit is. But like last week, I legitimately put LAFC in the winners section. They beat Nashville SC 5-0. Bouanga looked totally back. They come out on the road against Colorado, which is like, no matter how bad Colorado may or may not be, that is always admittedly a tough game because of the elevation, but it wasn't snowing or nothing. And you lose 3-2 and get bammed on twice in 6 minutes by Georgi Mihailovic. It's not snowing.
They were doing their best LA Galaxy impression.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. So that was, I haven't dove into Steve C's press conference yet, but Steve, like, what are we doing? Like,
Steven,
come on, man. And then Portland Timbers 3-2 defeat at the Vancouver Whitecaps, who I could have put in the winner section. Lost 2 straight after getting bammed on 3-1 by the Philly Union at home in their last game. And after a promising start to the Phil Neville era, they've now hit a little bit of a roadblock. I don't know if you saw the highlights yet, but Evander scored just another insane goal.
That's the only thing he can do.
I thought you put it perfectly a couple weeks ago when you were saying like he's a total bot, but then like he comes out with these insane golazos every time he does score. He did it again. Yeah. It's so weird, like,
dude. He's the best player just for the entertainment factor. Like, he's 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper. He's got an empty net in front of him. He's blasting it wide.
You can't hit
but he's 45 yards out. He's hitting a bicycle kick that's going top ends.
The goal he scored last night was insane. I'm like, dude, what?
He's hilarious, dude. He was created in a lab for content.
He's a hilarious player, and like from our perspective, it's like a game like this is like perfect.
Yeah.
Because he scores an insane goal like that out of nowhere while not really playing well the rest of the game, it doesn't seem like. And then they still lose the game.
Yeah.
And Phil Neville also is a great salty press conference. I haven't dove into that one yet either. I need to dive into Phil. I need to dive into Steve C. Maybe I think a new segment might be Blazing Hot Coach Press Conference of the Week. I think we might have been toying with that last season.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to get some good ones this
I got to
week.
say, Vanni Sartini had one of the best quotes I think I've ever seen. On the Caps' strong first half, if the first half was a city, it was Florence. If it was a person, it was my wife. If it was an idea, it was socialism.
Oh my God.
Vanni Sartini
he cooks.
Dude, he's prime.
He's one of the best coach press conferences in the league. I mean, he started this game off with, it was originally a 6-game suspension, and it started and it got reduced to 4, I believe, on appeal because he made what was admittedly a very ill-advised joke about the death of a referee last year. And so I think the suspension in that situation was both expected and warranted. But like a quote like that.
Yeah, he's back to prime form.
He's back to prime form and not offensive form. So that's good to see. I really hope Vanni Sartini keeps that Whitecaps job for as long as they'll let him, because we need more entertaining press conferences in this league.
Correct.
I feel like the coaches have, for the most part, been delivering on that this year. Steve C has had some good ones. Peter Vermees is always good for some. Josh Wolf has been on fire since last season. Mm-hmm. So there's been some good stuff, but it's good to have Vanni back.
And you know, they're playing well. The Caps are playing well. They're second in the West.
The Caps are a good team.
They got Scottish Messi, dude.
They've got Scottish Messi, and I should have put them in the winners section, to be honest, for like a Cascadia victory.
And Fafa Picolt's been or Fabrice Picolt, not
Fafa. Yeah, Fafa was a good signing. The Caps have a good coach. They have a pretty decent roster, and they have Scottish Messi. So I expect them. I mean, I'd fully expect them to be a playoff team in the West and competing for home playoff games. All right, that was all I had for winners and losers for match day 7. So I think we're good to wrap it right there, unless you have anything else, Noah.
That's it, man. What an ep.
It was a good one. Thank you, as always, to everyone who tunes in and submitted questions. We really appreciate the spike in listenership that we've seen over these last couple episodes. It's been really great to see. Like, rate, comment, subscribe on whatever your platform of choice may be. That really helps us out and boosts us in the algorithm and all that.
Share it with Vanni Sartini.
Share it with your friends. Share it with your neighbors. Share it with your parents.
Your mom's dog.
Let's keep getting those numbers up, and we'll stay motivated to keep putting these out every single week, reacting to whatever may or may not have happened with the Seattle Sounders and what's going on in the rest of MLS.
Next week's will be a little bit late. I'm going on a trip, so we'll be in midweek form for next week. We got a midweek matchup.
That's fine. It's all good. Anyway, appreciate you all tuning in as always. Until next time, we out.
Peace.